Hello, welcome to Lightning Round, a series where I try and explain DJ and production topics in as little time as possible without missing anything super important. I have a lot to say about this one, so let's go. Side note, to understand this video best, I recommend you watch the beat matching Lightning Round video, especially if you're not familiar with beat matching, just so you understand what beat matching is, because Sync is a tool that does beat matching for you. Sync is a tool that pretty much all modern DJ equipment has, and what it basically does is force the beat grid on one song to line up with the beat grid on another song. So traditionally, you have the beat grid lined up to the drums, and then you can layer it on top of another song with the beat grid lined up to the drums. You can hit sync, and it will force the drums to sit directly on top of each other, so you don't have to bother with beat matching. And sync is massively controversial, and there are some good reasons why it's controversial, but I do want to point out at the top of the video that there's nothing wrong with using sync, there's never been anything wrong with using sync, and people who say you should never use sync are usually elitists. Usually. If you disagree with that, wait until the end of the video, and then if you still disagree with me, complain, but hear me out. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about why anyone cares about sync. So if you've seen the beat matching video, I did briefly mention that beat matching is kind of at the heart of what it is to DJ and what the DJing process and culture represents. And originally beat matching was half of the art of DJing and the other half was track selection. And a lot of the original DJs didn't even make the music they were playing. What you were doing was delivering an experience to someone and showing them, hey, with all of these songs that you could just go out and buy, I've bought the best ones and I can combine them in the best way. Some people view sync as a way to sort of skip the process of beat matching, which should be a fundamental of DJing, and I kind of disagree on that. Everyone should learn to beat match by ear, or at least try, for quite a few reasons, but it doesn't need to be the first thing that new DJs learn, and I actually recommend it not to be the first thing that new DJs learn. You also don't need to be doing it on stage. There's nothing wrong with using sync while performing on stage, and there are a few reasons for that as well. I personally beat match while I'm on stage. One reason is I just prefer it. I like the feeling of having manual control over the tracks. It keeps me on my toes and I feel more connected to the music and the performance. It feels more organic to me. So I like to do it that way. And it's also good practice because even if you use sync, not knowing how to beat match can definitely hurt you in the future. There's some older equipment where sync has a few quirks, such as on some older CDJs, sync doesn't understand that 70 BPM and 140 BPM are functionally the same thing, and you can play a track at 70 and a track at 140 at the same speed. So if you try and use sync on one of those older decks, it will actually double the speed of 70 or half the speed of the 140 track to make the numbers the same, and you'll end up playing one of your tracks at either double or half speed. I've seen it happen live, and it's really painful. So knowing what equipment will do that, if you're going to use sync, at least know which equipment you can and can't use sync on, because it will double your tracks. Another problem is back-to-backs. Sync works, like I said earlier, by lining up the beat grids in your software. So no matter how prepared you are and how much and how meticulously you prepare your beat grids, if you end up going back to back with someone at a party, or you get booked going back to back at them at a show and they don't use beat grids, they do everything by ear, or they have some other method, sync doesn't work for you because it's going to try and lock on to the grid of their track, which isn't on their drums. Thirdly, some venues have old busted decks. I've definitely played at venues where the sync button just doesn't work, or it works about half the time when you're hitting it, and that'll ruin your set if you don't have a plan B. So you should know how to beat match at least a little bit so that you can sort of escape those situations. I've seen really, really good DJs burned by these problems, and it sucks because otherwise they're fantastic. However, alongside all of the reasons not to use sync, there are a ton of reasons to use sync. When sync is enabled, any tempo change to one track is mirrored by the other track, meaning that you can take two songs, layer them on top of each other, sync them, and then increase their speed together without worrying about increasing them at different rates and one sliding out of time with the other. You can also do this with one hand so that you can do something else on the other side with a third deck, preparing a third track or something. It massively reduces the amount of time that you have to spend messing with songs to get them to line up right, especially if you're a slow beat matcher. You don't want to spend half the time you're on stage just trying to figure out how to get the song to line up. You want to be picking the next song and enjoying yourself and interacting with the crowd a little bit. So beat matching it can be very time consuming if you're not fast at it, and it can be more harm than good in some cases. This next part is an opinion, okay? It's an opinion. Beat matching should not in any way be the first thing that people learn when they get into DJing. Beat matching is tedious, it's hard to get right, and it sounds really, really bad until you're good at it. It's so painful to try and learn beat matching that if you're just starting with DJing, it can be incredibly discouraging. It can be really hard to sort of get excited when everything you're trying to do sounds really bad because you can't get the drums to line up, but somebody told you never to use sync. So every time you try and practice, it just sounds bad and you end up stopping practicing and you don't get into an art or a passion that you otherwise could really, really enjoy. So don't worry about using sync for a while. Get involved, use sync, get excited about DJing, find your passion, and if it's something you really care about and a community that you want to be a part of, come back to it and learn beat matching once you've decided that you want to take it seriously. There is literally no more space left in this script because this is a lightning round video, so that's the end of the lightning round. Goodbye.